Hello and welcome to lesson 33, which is all about adjectives. We're going to add in a group of irregular comparatives and superlatives, adjectives in us, ea, u, and the dative of degree of difference. So, in lesson 32, we learned about adjectives that have regular comparatives and superlatives, comparatives in teros, terra, pteron, and superlatives in tatos, tate, taton. Now we're going to add in a whole group of adjectives that have comparatives where the masculine and feminine look alike, eon, and the neuter is in eon, or omitting the iota, masculine and feminine in on, neuter in on, and they take third declension endings. The superlatives of these adjectives are in istos, iste, iston. So they use first and second declension endings, just like adjectives with regular superlatives. So here's the first set of them. So eithros, shameful, and ekthros, hateful. These two both lose the rho in the comparative and superlative. So iskion, ektheon, eiskistos, echistos. Hedus, sweet, which is new in this lesson, gives us the comparative hedion and the superlative hedistos. And our old friend kalos, kale, kalon, has a comparative kaleon, a superlative kalistos. Notice the doubled lambda here. Now, our old friend agathos, good, is split into three in the comparative and superlative. So if you're talking about something that's better morally, then you get the comparative beltion, and the superlative is beltistos. If you're talking about something that's better in ability or worth, then the comparative is ameinon, and the superlative is aristos. If you're talking about something that is stronger and thus better, then your comparative is kraton, and your superlative is kratistos. Kakos also has three different sets of comparatives and superlatives. So if you're talking about something that is morally worse, then it's kakion, superlative kakistos. If you're talking about something that's worse in ability, it's keron keristos. And if you're talking about something that is worse because it's weaker, then it's haton. And there's not a superlative adjective here, but there is the adverb heihista. So this is a time to bring up the fact that although we're saying that these all have irregular comparatives and superlatives, their adverbs are produced in a predictable way. We're going to use the neuter singular nominative and accusative as the comparative adverb, and we're going to use the neuter plural nominative accusative as the superlative adverb, just as we did with ones that had comparatives in teros and superlatives in tatos. One last set. So megas gives us maidzon and megistos. Oligos gives us elaton, which can also serve as the comparative for mikros. And then the superlative oligistos or elachistos. Polus gives us pleon with a iota or pleon without a iota, and pleistos. Hraidios easy gives us hraion and hraistos. And finally, tachus, swift, like the tachometer in your car. Tachus gives us staton and tachistos. So now that we have these new comparatives with endings in ion, ion, or own, on, we need to know how to decline them. And actually, they work almost exactly like any third declension adjective with a nasal stem, like eudaimon, eudaimon, which we learned back in lesson 17. So here is the stem eudaimon, and that's the neuter, singular, vocative, nominative, and accusative, and also the masculine, feminine, singular, vocative. In the masculine and feminine singular nominative, we lengthen that final vowel and we end up with eudaimon with an omega. Everywhere else, we just add the usual third declension endings to that stem, except in the dative plural here, where the nu drops out and we end up with eudaimosin. These new comparative adjectives are going to work just like that, except we also have some alternative contracted forms going on. So first we'll look at the masculine, feminine, accusative singular, valtiona. We can also have a contracted form where that nu drops out, the omicron and the alpha contract, and we end up with valtio. That's also in the neuter, nominative plural, accusative plural, vocative plural. The other contraction that can happen is in the nominative plural, beltiones. Again, the nu drops out, the omicron and the epsilon contract and give us beltius. That form also appears in the vocative plural and imitating the nominative plural in the accusative plural. So that form is not a contraction of the usual accusative plural, it's an imitation of the contraction of the nominative plural. All right, let's finish up by talking about adjectives with endings in us, ea, u. So they have third declension endings in the masculine and neuter, first declension endings in the feminine. Let's look at the feminine first because it's super easy. Short alpha here, here, and here, so it works just like Moira, the noun. Long alpha here and here. Works just exactly as you'd expect. Now for the masculine and neuter, the stem is heidu, and you see the pure stem in the neuter nominative, accusative, and vocative singular, in the masculine vocative singular, add a sigma for the masculine nominative singular, a nu for the masculine neuter singular. Elsewhere, in the genitive and dative singular and throughout the plurals, we have a different stem. It's this head-death stem. Note how we have a circumflex there, how hedes becomes hedes with a circumflex there because they contract. There it is again in the vocative, and the accusative plural masculine imitates the nominative plural. All right. Now, let's talk about the dative of degree of difference. First, just look at this part of this sentence. Okay, the sheep are cleverer than the dogs. Remember the genitive of comparison. So the sheep are cleverer than the dogs. How much cleverer than the dogs? They are cleverer than the dogs by a lot, by much. That is a dative of degree of difference. The sheep are much cleverer than the dogs. Look at another example. I love the horses more than the children. This time I've done my comparison with A, and so I have my accusative horses here being compared to my accusative children there. So I love the horses more than the children. Oligoi, by a little. I love the horses a little more than the children. One more. I arrived earlier. Here is the neuter, nominative and accusative of the comparative, serving as the adverb. So I arrived earlier than you, dative of degree of difference, by many days. I arrived earlier than you by many days. So that's the dative of degree of difference.